Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10. And yes, it is NFL based, of course, wearing the Tom Brady jersey. And of course, it is to do with the divisional round, as we are now in the divisional round when this is being um, dropped. It will be January 17th, the first day of the divisional playoff. It is going to be the Denver Broncos, the one seed in the AFC, hosting the Buffalo Bills, who, of course, are played their last game at Ralph Wilson slash Highmark Stadium because they're the lowest remaining seed, so they can't host the AFC title again. But yeah, Buffalo's on a mission. I mean, no Lamar, no Patrick in the playoffs. They got to go through and all that. Will Buffalo beat Denver? I don't think so. I think it's going to be close, if anything. I think Buffalo will be close. Also, today is the Niners Seahawks divisional round battle as the Niners dethroned the defending champions and the Seahawks had the bye. Yeah, I forgot to mention that Buffalo took care of business in Jacksonville, like I suspected. The Niners beat the Eagles. The only wildcard game out of six I failed to get right was San Fran Philly. But San Fran will go to Seattle. I think San Fran will win because you got revenge for or what happened in the final week of the season. Seattle ruining San Francisco's chances to be the one seed, and let's face facts. Number two, San Francisco's hosting the Super Bowl, and yes, it is possible to win the Super Bowl in your own backyard. Tampa did that in 2021. And three, Sam Darnold is not to be trusted. I know he's kind of hurt now, but I wasn't going to trust Darnold anyway. My apologies, Jason Lundgren, but it's San Francisco. Also, tomorrow is the Texans and the Patriots, Houston, New England. I'm actually scared. Houston's got a good defense. I think if anything, why are people beeping me? I apologize. But anyway, New England beating Houston, it's probably going to be close, if anything. Like, I think the Pats and Texans will be close. Pats will win by single digits. And then finally, we'll have the Rams and Bears. I think the Rams have a great defense. Their offense looks pretty good. And I think they can take care of the Bears. I think even though the Bears did that great comeback against the Packers in the playoffs, I think maybe they don't have much in their tank. And I think that the Rams are going to have to know what they're doing. But nonetheless, let's talk about the top 10 divisional round games of all time and all that. Number 10 is The Sea of Hands from December 1974. It's the 74-35 season between the Dolphins and the Raiders. The Dolphins came into Oakland as two-time defending champions. They won Super Bowl VII despite Gary Yepremian's quote-unquote pass. And Super Bowl VIII, they dominated the Vikings so much. At one time, the Vikings had minus yards running. Anyhow, Miami was looking big to beat Oakland. Of course, the divisional round back in the 70s was a whole lot different because, yeah, you had three division winners, but you also had one wildcard team instead of the multi ones we do now. In that format, we had only one wildcard team. But yeah, Miami went to Oakland. They were the AFC East champions, and the Raiders were the West champions. And then a big pass by Ken Stabler to Clarence Davis with many Miami hands in it. Thus the Sea of Hands. I think it's overrated because I think Clarence Davis would have caught the ball. There was no way that the Dolphins defenders would have had their hands on it. But that's just me. Number 9 is the Mile High Miracle from 2013. The Ravens would head to Denver to face the Broncos after winning a wildcard game. The Broncos looked pretty good. This was the first season Peyton Manning played in Denver after Indy dumped him off just because he had a neck injury and went with Andrew Luck. He was trying to make people realize that the Colts were making a giant mistake. And obviously they have. I mean, they go through so many starting quarterbacks, it's like Kleenex in the past like 15 years. But nevertheless, well, once Andrew Luck retired. Anyway, the Broncos were up by 7 with a minute left when Joe Flacco threw a nice heave to Jacoby Jones, RIP, who managed to catch the ball, outrace a couple of Denver defenders at the 30, and then it was a 70-yard touchdown pass. One of the greatest touchdown passes of all time. That tied the game, and then they went to double overtime, which was a rarity in the NFL. And no, that was not the longest game in NFL playoff history. That's Dolphins Chiefs 27-24 in 1971. But yeah, the Ravens won Tucker double overtime kick, and the Ravens would go on to beat the Pats in the AFC title game and win the Super Bowl, to my chagrin, of course. Number 8 is the Jaguars. from 1996/97. So the 1996 Jacksonville Jaguars were in their second season of existence. So too was Carolina. And the crazy thing was that both the Jags and Panthers were going to make the playoffs in their second season. The Panthers won the NFC West, whereas the Jags won a wildcard berth on the final day because in Atlanta, Morgan Anderson missed a field goal and the Jaguars got in. Anywho, Jacksonville went to Buffalo, beat the Bills 30-27, basically hastened the retirement of Jim Kelly. Then they went to Denver. Denver was dominant. They looked pretty good. And, John Elway was there, and, they were going to try to win a Super Bowl for him. They were number one. They rested a lot of their starters. And worst of all, the Rocky Mountain News called the Jaguars the Jagwads. Why I say it's the Jagwads game. But Mark Brunell, the great lefty quarterback from the University of Washington, and I would say Fred Taylor, but I'm probably wrong. Who was their running back? I don't know. Antron Means? But anyway, the Jags shocked the world by beating the Broncos again by a score of 30-27, ruining the Broncos' chances, and then getting to the AFC title game, where they got beaten by the Patriots. In fact, the Panthers got to the AFC title game after beating Dallas. They lost to Green Bay. We were this close to seeing Jaguars versus Panthers in the finals. Nevertheless, this actually was a good loss for the Broncos, as they decided to change their color scheme from the orange jerseys to blue with orange striping and all that. They changed their helmets, they changed their logo, and they went to straight Super Bowls. Sometimes change is good. Number 7 is the Minneapolis Miracle between the Vikings and Saints 2018. A lot of people will probably think it should be up higher, but there's a lot of reasons why it's not. Anyway, the Vikings and Saints were playing in the divisional round at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. The Saints were looking good against the Vikings. I basically bragged to my buddy Bill that I called it. I knew the Saints were going to beat the Vikings with like 3 seconds left. And then Kirk Cousins throws this ball that Stephon Diggs manages to grab and stay in bounds, although he could have went out of bounds and they would have went for the winning field goal. But he stayed in bounds. No one touched him. He got to the end zone with no time left, and the Vikings beat the Saints. The worst part was that, the guy that Diggs cut the ball over the New Orleans player, the New Orleans player was playing back, and then he decided to go forward to try to go for the interception. If he stayed backwards, then he could have easily tackled Diggs in bounds and maybe stop the clock, run down the clock. But he went for the interception, and then Diggs caught the ball, touchdown, Vikings. Although the Pats still do have them, I mean, whatever. Number 6 is Kansas City Buffalo from 2022 in one of the most instant classics. This was major, more so than the Minneapolis Miracle. I mean, when you have the fact that 25 points were scored in the final 2 minutes of the football game, that's just amazing. Like, you have almost 13 points per minute. But it's high press and all that. It was a miraculous comeback for Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs, with 12 seconds left, Buffalo had 12 seconds to play with. Kansas City got the ball downfield, and Harrison Butker made a massive field goal, and then the Chiefs won in overtime on a touchdown. Okay, set, match. The Chiefs beat the Bills. So that's what happened. Number 5 is the 2006 Steelers versus Colts. The Steelers, like last week when I talked about the top 10 wildcard games of all time, they were in the list. The one against the Bengals, in which the Bengals were looking to get rid of their playoff curse of winning a playoff game. Of course, they were bad in the late 90s. Back to the late 90s. So, yeah. The Steelers then beat the Bengals and knocked Carson Palmer out of the game. Well, chemo fun. Wolfhard did. And then they would have to face the Colts. The Colts were looking good. They almost went perfect. They were like, what, 12-0 or something? They were number 1 seed. They were going to win everything. And it looked like Peyton Manning was going to win his Super Bowl. But then, of course, things happened. The Colts were just not doing that well. Jerome Bettis was going into the end zone to ice the game with a touchdown, but then he fumbled the ball and the Colts had it. Nick Harper was going to try a scoop and score. He almost did it. If it wasn't for Ben Roethlisberger's swipe tackle, if he swiped like a second later, Harper would have had the scoop and score. Like he would have taken it for a touchdown. But Roethlisberger managed to swipe tackle Harper down. No big deal. The Colts were charging down the field, and then Vanderjack was going to kick the field goal to tie the game. One problem though, he massively missed wide right for 6 yards. Where is this actor kicker that in 2003 he missed 0 field goals? Where the heck is that Mike Vanderjack and all that? Some say it was karma because a couple years prior he actually got mad at Peyton Manning when they lost 41-0 to the Jets in the playoffs. But anyway, yeah, the Colts lost it. Vanderjack almost lost his job immediately with the Colts. They signed Mr. Vinatieri away from New England. We'll talk about Vinatieri later. And the Steelers beat the Colts. They were the 6th seed. They were going to go to Denver for the AFC Championship game. They shocked the Broncos, and then they beat the Seahawks in Super Bowl 40. Number 4 is the Packers Cardinals from 2016. So Green Bay and Arizona were playing each other. 5 years prior, Green Bay and Arizona had that 51-45 wild card slugfest. I think I talked about that in my top 10 wild card list. But yeah, the Packers Cardinals were going to play in the divisional round this time, the second round, if you will. The Packers actually had a massive Hail Mary by Aaron Rodgers to Richard Rodgers, no relation, in Detroit. Although some people said that it was a phantom penalty. And I kind of agree. So the Packers would take on the Cardinals in Arizona. The Cardinals, of course, having all those problems with winning playoff games in the first place. So anyway, Aaron Rodgers made a few key plays on fourth down. Both to Richard Janis. Fourth and 20, and then Janis made the catch and got the first down. And then with no time left, Rodgers heaved one in the end zone, and then somehow, some way, even though there were a couple of Cardinal defenders, Janis made the catch. Al Michaels on NBC couldn't believe it, and neither could Chris Collinsworth, saying, "Oh, stop it!" Anyway, the Packers beat the Cardinals by a score. Well, the Packers tied the game at 20. Overtime beckoned, the Cardinals got the ball first, and then a simple shovel pass to Larry Fitzgerald turned into a massive 70-plus yard gain. He almost scored. They were down at the 5, but then they decided to do a massive shovel pass, another shovel pass to Fitzgerald. And Larry Legend scores a touchdown. The Cardinals go to the NFC title game where they would get romped by those pesky Panthers. But it was jaw dropping. Number 3 is the famous tuck rule game. I know you'll probably be thinking, hang on, he's going to make this number 1 because of the Patriots. Actually, no, I'm not. So the Patriots were playing the Raiders. The Raiders won a wild card game. They had to go to New England for this round. The Patriots were not really that great. 11-5, fine. They just managed to get into the divisional round and not need a bye. This was the season in which Drew Bledsoe was the main quarterback for the Patriots until in week 2, Mo Lewis decided to run him close to the end zone and injure him. And then this young Michigan quarterback named Tom Brady, picked in the 6th round despite having a great college career, manages to lead the Patriots to 11 wins because the Pats were 0-2 at the time. Then the Pats would host the Raiders in a massive blizzard. This would be actually the last game at Foxborough Stadium before they would move to Gillette Stadium because the Patriots played in the stadium before Gillette Stadium. I know it was not the same location. But anyway, the Pats would take on the Raiders, and everything looked pretty good. The Raiders were up 13-10 and thought they forced a fumble by Tom Brady to win the game. I kind of picked the Raiders to shock the Patriots. I was not a full-fledged Patriots fan at this time, mind you. So anyway, the Raiders did it. But then apparently the referee said that because Brady was pulling his arm forward, it was an incomplete pass, even though that he was pulling it down to keep the ball, and he was hit hard. The tuck rule was in the books, but basically it hasn't been really ruled before or since. And then Adam Vinatieri came through. Now, a lot of people hate it because of that rule game, but bear in mind that Vinatieri had to kick a 50-yard field goal in the freaking snowstorm through the yellow uprights. If he missed, then okay, all is fine. It's no big deal. The Raiders don't get fucked. But unfortunately, though, the ball goes through the goalpost tie game, and then Vinatieri in overtime kicks a field goal through the snow, and Lonnie Paxton, the Patriots offensive lineman, does snow angels in the end zone. He even did so when Vinatieri kicked the winning field goal in Super Bowl 36. So that was just amazing and all that. But yeah, Vinatieri could have easily missed that field goal, one of his two field goals, and the Raiders win the game. Now, a lot of people actually did say that this was karma because in 1976, the Pats were playing the Raiders in the division round and were going to pull the upset in Oakland. But unfortunately, they called a phantom roughing the passer, calling Ray Sugar Bear Hamilton, and the Raiders won the game. Number two is the epic in Miami, Chargers Dolphins. So the Chargers were playing the Dolphins. And it was big. The Chargers had the Air Coryell thing with Dan Fouts throwing passes like Kellen Winslow, John Jefferson, Charlie Joyner, and I am missing a wide receiver. I know I'm missing wide receiver. It's definitely not Lance Allworth because I was years prior. The Dolphins were coming back. They had to have what they called a quarterback tandem of Woodley and Strock. It was like, well, who's the starter for Miami? I don't know. Yeah, this was before Dan Marino came along. So anyway, yeah, the Chargers and Dolphins were playing each other the day after a famous Orange Bowl win for the University of Clemson that got them the national title, their only national title for 3+ decades. Anywho, the Chargers would block a punt and then get lucky when the Dolphins player forgot to get the kickoff return and all that. So the Chargers were up 24-0, and it looked like it was easy pickings for Fouts and crew for the Chargers to go to the AFC title game. But Woodley was replaced by Don Strock, and then they did the gadget play, the Statue of Liberty play, if you will, in the last few seconds to make it 24-17. Dolphins would end up tying the game, and then overtime back, it was 38-38. It was a massive momentum swing by both sides. The Chargers had the chance to win the game on a rough Bernard field goal, but it was missed. Kellen Winslow, who was the tight end, actually blocked Miami's field goal attempt by Yuri von Schalman that kept the game going. And then the Chargers finally managed to get down the field close to the end of the first overtime when Bernard made the field goal. Chargers win 41-38, and it was a massive epic. And the pictures of Kellen Winslow being carried off by two teammates was epic. A lot of people said he was basically doing it for the camera, but you never know. And number one was Raiders Steelers. If you know that when I say 1972 Raiders Steelers, football fans will definitely know the name Immaculate Reception. This was actually on the heels of another AFC matchup. There was another good AFC divisional matchup the previous day, and that was the Dolphins versus the Browns. The Dolphins on a late field goal by former Brown, Paul Warfield. Did I say field goal or did I say touchdown? Well, anyway, they beat the Browns 20-14. But, the Immaculate Reception beat it to the punch. It was a very big defensive battle. The score was only 7-6 in the fourth quarter when Ken Stabler got the touchdown run. So Bradshaw on 4th and 10 had to heave it up. And he heaved it up towards Frenchie Fuqua. But the ball deflected off either him or Jack Tatum and landed at the feet of Franco Harris, who managed to pluck it up off the turf for a touchdown. The Steelers would go on to beat the Raiders, and the fans were happy. It took about 20 minutes for review, but they let the touchdown stand. A lot of people said because they were scared of being in Pittsburgh. But the fact of the matter is that, it was a wild ride and all that. A lot of questions were asked saying that who did the ball deflect off, Tatum or Fuqua? Because if it was off Tatum, fair play. But if it was Fuqua at the time in 1972, a pass could not be caught by two straight offensive players. If it went off an offensive player, then a defensive player, and then back to an offensive player, that was fine. But because if it were not Fuqua, then Franco would not have been allowed to catch the pass. They would have called it an illegal pass, and that was the end of the game. And a lot of people also said, did Franco make the catch off the turf cleanly? Did it hit the turf? Unfortunately, though, NBC did not have the right camera angle. Of course, this is 1972 when a lot more camera angles have been added in 2026. And also the fact that, you know, NFL Films didn't even have the right answer. So basically, it was up to interpretation. Franco actually caught the ball before he hit the turf. And yes, Steelers would lose to the Dolphins in the AFC title game, and the Dolphins went on to win their perfect season. But anyway, the Immaculate Reception was just things. And Raiders fans, like the late George Atkinson would say, the Immaculate Deception. These nuts. I had to go there. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.